The marketplace in Onitsha was loud and crowded, but all eyes suddenly turned to one strange sight. A man in an expensive black suit had just stepped out of a shiny convoy. He was a billionaire, the kind of man who never walked among common people. But now he stood frozen, staring at a poor girl sitting by the roadside. Her face carried a deep scar that ran from her forehead down to her cheek. The kind of scar that made people run away. The kind that made children call her a witch. But this man wasn't running. He was trembling. And then, without warning, he fell to his knees in the dust, tears pouring down his face like a broken man. "It can't be," he whispered, his voice shaking as he stared at her scar. "It can't be you." The girl looked at him, terrified and confused. Who was this man? And why was he crying over the very thing that had made her life a living nightmare? 19 years. That was how long Chioma had lived in the village of Umyuk, and not once had anyone called her by her name with love. They called her the witch girl. They called her the cursed one. They called her a demon sent to bring bad luck. All because of a scar on her face. The scar started at her left temple, curved down over her eye, and ended at her cheek. It was dark, deep, and impossible to hide. And in Umyuk, where people believed strongly in spirits and curses, that scar made her less than human. Chioma lived in a small mud house with Mama Adana, the old widow who had raised her. The house had cracks in the walls and a roof that leaked when it rained. But it was home. It was the only place where Chioma felt safe. Every morning, Chioma woke up early to sweep the compound. She fetched water from the stream. She helped Mama Adana roast plantains to sell at the market. But no matter how hard they worked, people refused to buy from them. "Don't eat from the witch's mother," they would say. "Her food is cursed." Children threw stones at Chioma when she walked past. Women spat on the ground and muttered prayers to protect themselves. Men shook their heads and told stories about how she must have killed her real family. Chioma had heard all the stories. That she was a water spirit. That she had fallen from the sky. That the scar was a mark from an evil god. But the truth was, Chioma didn't know where she came from. She didn't know who her real parents were. She didn't even know how she got the scar. All she knew was that Mama Adana had found her 17 years ago, and that was all that mattered. Mama Adana never treated her like a curse. She called her my daughter. She braided her hair. She sang to her at night when the villagers' words cut too deep. She was the only mother Chioma had ever known. But now Mama Adana was sick. Very sick. It started with a cough. Then she couldn't stand for long. Then she stopped eating. Now she lay on a mat all day, her breathing slow and painful. Chioma had tried everything. She begged the village herbalist for help, but he chased her away. She asked neighbors for money, but they slammed their doors. No one in Umyuk would help the woman who raised a cursed child. So Chioma made a decision. If her village wouldn't help, she would go somewhere else. Somewhere far where people didn't know her face. Where strangers might show mercy. That morning she wrapped a cloth around her head, kissed Mama Adana's forehead, and began the long walk to Onitsha. The road was dusty and hot. Her feet ached. Her throat was dry. But she kept walking. She had to. Mama Adana's life depended on it. When she finally reached the busy Onitsha market, she sat down by the roadside with a broken calabash in front of her. Her voice was soft and shaking as she whispered to strangers passing by. "Please, help me. My mother is dying." But just like in Umyuk, people stared at her scar and walked away. Hours passed under the burning sun. Chioma's lips were dry and cracked. Her stomach growled with hunger. But she didn't move. She couldn't give up. Not when Mama Adana was lying on that mat, fighting for every breath. A few people dropped small coins into her calabash. 5 naira here. 10 naira there. It wasn't enough. Not even close to what she needed for medicine. "Move away from that girl," a woman warned her daughter as they walked past. "She has the mark of evil on her face." Chioma closed her eyes. Even here, far from Umyuk, the rejection followed her like a shadow. The scar had become her prison. A prison with no escape. She thought about Mama Adana's words from the night before. "My daughter," the old woman had whispered weakly, "you are stronger than you know. One day you will understand why you survived." Survived what? Chioma had wanted to ask. But Mama Adana's eyes had closed, and she had drifted into sleep. The sun was beginning to set when Chioma heard the sound of engines. Loud, powerful engines. She looked up and saw 3 black SUVs moving slowly through the crowded market road. People stopped to stare. Cars like that didn't come to this part of Onitsha. Those were the kind of vehicles that belonged to governors, oilmen, or billionaires. The convoy slowed down near where Chioma sat. Traffic had blocked the road ahead. Traders pushed their carts. Okada riders honked their horns. Everything was chaos. Inside the first vehicle sat Chief Emeka Okafor. He was one of the richest men in Nigeria. Owner of Okafor Industries. A man whose name appeared in newspapers and on television. But today wealth felt meaningless to him. He had been on his way to a business meeting in Onitsha. An important meeting about contracts worth billions. But his mind wasn't on business. It never really was anymore. For 17 years, Chief Emeka had carried a wound that no amount of money could heal. The loss of his wife. The loss of his daughter. Both gone in one terrible night. The bus accident. That cursed, rainy night 17 years ago. His driver glanced at him in the rearview mirror. "Sir, the road is blocked. Should I find another route?" Chief Emeka nodded absently. "Yes. Take the inner road." The convoy turned into a narrower street, moving slowly past market stalls and food vendors. Chief Emeka stared out the tinted window, his thoughts far away. And then he saw her. A girl. Sitting alone by the roadside. Her head was bowed. Her shoulders slumped. There was a calabash in front of her, and she looked like someone who had lost all hope. Something about her made Chief Emeka's chest tighten. Maybe it was the way she sat. So small. So alone. Just like his daughter would have been if she had survived and ended up lost somewhere. "Stop the car," he said suddenly. The driver hesitated. "Sir?" "I said stop the car." The convoy came to a halt. Security men immediately stepped out, scanning the area. Chief Emeka opened his door and climbed out, ignoring the confused looks from his bodyguards. People in the market began to whisper. Who was this rich man? Why was he stopping here? Chief Emeka walked slowly toward the girl. His expensive shoes crunched on the dusty ground. He didn't know why he was doing this. He only knew he had to. Chioma felt a shadow fall over her. She looked up, startled. A tall man stood before her, dressed in a fine igbada. His face was kind but serious. For a moment their eyes met. And then Chief Emeka saw it. The scar. Running from her forehead, curving down over her left eye, stopping at her cheek. His heart stopped. His breath caught in his throat. His entire body went cold. That scar. He knew that scar. 17 years ago, in the wreckage of a bus, he had seen his baby daughter one last time. Blood on her tiny face. A wound on the left side. The exact same pattern. The exact same place. "No," he whispered. "It can't be." His legs gave way. He fell to his knees right there in the dust, his expensive clothes forgotten. Tears streamed down his face. The entire market went silent. People stared in shock. A billionaire kneeling before a beggar girl? Chioma's heart pounded with fear. "Sir, I'm sorry. Please, I didn't mean to." "Your face," he whispered, his voice breaking. "That scar. How did you get it?" Chioma's hands shook. No one had ever asked her that question with such emotion. Most people just stared and whispered. But this man, this rich stranger, looked at her scar like it held the answer to something he had lost. I don't know, sir," she stammered. "My mother said she found me after an accident. A long time ago." Chief Emeka's chest heaved. His hands trembled as he gripped his knees. "An accident," he repeated, his voice barely a whisper. "When? How long ago?" 17 years, sir," Chioma said quietly. "I was very small. Just a baby." The world seemed to tilt around Chief Emeka. 17 years. The same time. The same terrible night when the rain poured like God's tears and the bus carrying his wife and daughter had crashed. He had searched for weeks. Months. The officials told him everyone died. They showed him burned remains. They gave him papers to sign. But they never found his daughter's body. He had buried an empty coffin. "Your mother?" Chief Emeka said urgently, leaning closer. "Where is she?" "Who is she?" "She's in our village, sir." "She's very sick. That's why I came here to beg." Chioma's voice cracked. "Please, sir, if you can help her. Take me to her," Chief Emeka said firmly, rising to his feet. "Now." Chioma blinked in confusion. "Sir? I must see your mother. I must speak with her." His voice was steady now, filled with a desperate determination. "Please. It's important." Chioma didn't understand what was happening. But something in this man's eyes made her believe him. Made her trust him. She nodded slowly. "It's far, sir. The village is not easy to reach." "I don't care," Chief Emeka said. He turned to his security men. "We're going to Yumuk village. Now." The bodyguards exchanged glances but said nothing. When Chief Emeka gave an order, no one questioned him. He opened the door of the SUV and gestured to Chioma. Get in. Chioma stared at the luxury vehicle. She had never been inside a car before, let alone one like this. Her wrapper was dusty. Her feet were dirty. She felt too poor, too unworthy. Please, Chief Emeka said gently. Don't be afraid. Slowly, carefully, Chioma climbed into the back seat. The leather was soft. The air inside was cool. It felt like entering a different world. Chief Emeka sat beside her. As the convoy began to move, he couldn't take his eyes off her face. Off that scar. Every curve. Every line. It matched the image burned into his memory. What is your name? He asked softly. Chioma, sir. He closed his eyes. His daughter's name had been Zainab. But names could be changed. Names could be forgotten. Scars could not. Chioma, he repeated. Do you know anything about your real family? Anything at all? She shook her head. No, sir. Mama Adana never told me much. She only said she found me that night. Everyone else was gone. Chief Emeka's jaw tightened. His hands clenched into fists. He wanted to believe. But 17 years of grief had taught him to be careful with hope. Hope was dangerous. Hope could break you all over again. But that scar. That exact scar. The drive to Yumyuk took almost an hour. The roads grew rougher. The buildings smaller. By the time they reached the village, the sun was setting, painting the sky orange and red. Villagers stopped what they were doing and stared as the convoy rolled through the narrow paths. Children ran alongside the vehicles, shouting in excitement. Women whispered behind their hands. Is that not Chioma? One man said. The witch girl? Why is she in a rich man's car? Another woman asked, eyes wide with suspicion. Chioma kept her head down. She could feel their stares, hear their whispers. But for the first time she didn't feel ashamed. She had Chief Emeka beside her. And somehow that made her feel protected. The convoy stopped in front of the small mud house. Chioma jumped out quickly and ran to the door. Mama! Mama Adana, she called out, her voice urgent. Inside, lying on a worn mat, Mama Adana stirred weakly. Her eyes fluttered open. When she saw Chioma, relief washed over her wrinkled face. My daughter, she whispered. You came back. Yes, Mama. And I brought someone. Chioma turned as Chief Emeka stepped through the doorway. Mama Adana's eyes widened. Even in her sickness, she recognized power when she saw it. This was no ordinary man. Chief Emeka removed his cap respectfully and knelt beside her mat. Good evening, Mama, he said gently. My name is Emeka Okafor. Mama Adana tried to sit up, but she was too weak. Sir, why have you come to this poor place? Chief Emeka's voice was steady, but his eyes were filled with emotion. Mama, I came because of the girl you raised. Because of Chioma. The old woman's gaze shifted to Chioma, then back to Chief Emeka. Confusion clouded her face. Mama, Chief Emeka said, his voice trembling now, please tell me. Tell me everything about the night you found her. Mama Adana's breath was shallow and weak. She looked at Chioma, then at the rich man kneeling beside her mat. There was something in his eyes. Something desperate and painful. Why do you want to know? She whispered. Because, Chief Emeka said, his voice breaking, 17 years ago I lost my wife and daughter in a bus accident. And the scar on Chioma's face, it's exactly like the wound my daughter had. Mama Adana gasped softly. Her frail hand flew to her mouth. Tears filled her tired eyes. Chioma stepped closer, her heart pounding. Mama, please, tell him what you told me. The old woman nodded slowly. With great effort she began to speak. Her voice was thin, but every word carried the weight of truth. It was 17 years ago. The rain that night was terrible. Angry and violent. I was waiting for my husband to return from the market. She paused to catch her breath. Then I heard a crash. A loud, terrible crash from the main road. Chief Emeka leaned closer, his hands trembling. I took a lantern and ran into the storm, Mama Adana continued. When I reached the bend near the old Irako tree I saw it. A bus. Overturned. Destroyed. Smoke everywhere. Chioma knelt beside her, holding her hand. There were bodies, sir. So many bodies. Men. Women. Children. All of them, gone. Mama Adana's voice cracked. But then I heard a sound. A small cry. I searched and found her. A little girl no more than 2 years old. She was lying in the mud, bleeding from her face. That scar, it was fresh. Deep. Chief Emeka covered his face with his hands. His shoulders shook as silent sobs tore through him. I carried her in my arms, Mama Adana whispered. I waited by the road, thinking someone would come for her. A family member. Anyone. But no one came. The storm swallowed everything. So I brought her home. Did you find anything with her? Chief Emeka asked urgently, wiping his eyes. Any clothing? Any jewelry? Mama Adana no dedweakli. She pointed to a small wooden box beneath her mat. And there. I kept everything. Chioma quickly pulled out the box and handed it to Chief Emeka. His hands shook as he opened it. Inside were the burnt remains of a tiny pink dress. And beneath it, a small gold anklet. It was tarnished and blackened by smoke, but the letter engraved on it was still visible. The letter Z. Chief Emeka's breath left his body. He lifted the anklet with trembling fingers, staring at it as if it were a ghost. Zainab, he whispered. This was my daughter's. My wife made it for her. The Z stands for Zainab. Tears poured down his face. He clutched the anklet to his chest and wept like a man who had been holding his pain for too long. Chioma stared at him, her own tears falling. Sir, are you saying I'm your daughter? Chief Emeka looked up at her, his face wet with tears. I believe you are. Everything matches. The accident. The time. The scar. This anklet. His voice broke. But to be sure, to protect you and give you the life you deserve, we must do a test. A DNA test. Chioma didn't fully understand what that meant, but she nodded. Mama Adana reached out and touched Chief Emeka's hand weakly. Sir, I did not know who she was. I only knew she needed to live. I am sorry if I kept her from you. No, Mama, Chief Emeka said, his voice thick with emotion. You saved her. You gave her life when the world tried to take it. You loved her when no one else would. I owe you everything. He stood and turned to his bodyguards. Call the hospital in Port Harcourt. Tell them to prepare immediately. We're bringing 2 patients. 2, sir? One of the guards asked. Yes, Chief Emeka said firmly. Mama Adana will receive the best care available. And we will do the DNA test tonight. Within the hour, a medical helicopter landed just outside Yumuk village. The sound of the blade sent villagers running in fear. Some shouted that the gods had come. Others fell to their knees. But Chief Emeka didn't care about their fear or their shock. He carried Mama Adana in his arms and placed her gently on the stretcher. Chioma climbed in beside her, holding her hand tightly. As the helicopter lifted into the sky, Chioma looked down at Yumuk. The village that had rejected her. The village that had called her cursed. But now she was flying above it all. And beside her was a man who might be her father. The hospital in Port Harcourt was massive and gleaming. Nurses rushed Mama Adana to the emergency wing. Doctors examined her immediately, hooking her to machines and giving her oxygen. Chief Emeka stayed with Chioma the entire time. He held her hand as they took a sample of her blood for the DNA test. He whispered gently, "Don't be afraid. No matter what the result says, I will take care of you." But deep in his heart, he already knew. He had known the moment he saw that scar. Now all he needed was confirmation. The waiting room was quiet. Chief Emeka paced back and forth, his expensive shoes clicking on the tile floor. Chioma sat on a bench, her hands clasped tightly together. Hours passed like days. Finally, a doctor appeared, holding a sealed envelope. Chief Okafor, the doctor said. The results are ready. Chief Emeka's hand froze in the air. For a moment he couldn't move. 17 years of grief, of searching, of wondering, all came down to this single envelope. He took it slowly, his fingers trembling. Chioma stood up, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might break through her chest. Chief Emeka tore open the envelope. His eyes scanned the paper. Once, twice. His lips moved silently as he read the words. Then his knees buckled. He grabbed the edge of a chair to steady himself. A sound escaped his throat, something between a cry and a gasp. Tears streamed down his face. It's you, he whispered, his voice shaking. You're my daughter. You're my Zainab. Chioma's world tilted. She couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Sir. What? Chief Emeka crossed the room in 2 steps and pulled her into his arms. He held her tightly as if afraid she might disappear again. His shoulders shook with deep, broken sobs. My daughter, he whispered into her hair. My little girl. You're alive. You survived. You came back to me. Chioma stood frozen for a moment, then her own tears began to fall. She wrapped her arms around him and cried. For the first time in her life, she cried in the arms of her real father. The doctor smiled softly and stepped back, giving them privacy. After a long moment, Chief Emeka pulled back and held Chioma's face gently in his hands. The DNA is a perfect match. 99.9%. You are my blood. My child. Father, Chioma whispered. The word felt strange on her tongue. But it also felt right. Chief Emeka's face crumpled again and he pulled her close. I thought I lost you forever. I buried an empty coffin. I mourned for 17 years. But God brought you back. They stood there holding each other while nurses passed quietly in the hallway. Some wiped their own eyes. Even the security men standing nearby looked away, blinking hard. A few hours later, Mama Adana woke up in a clean hospital bed. Her breathing was steady now. The doctors had given her medicine, fluids, and proper treatment. For the first time in weeks, her chest didn't hurt. Chioma sat beside her, holding her hand. Chief Emeka stood nearby, watching them both with a mixture of gratitude and sorrow. Mama, Chioma said softly. The test came back. He's my father. My real father. Mama Adana's eyes filled with tears. She looked at Chief Emeka and smiled weakly. I knew it. From the moment you walked into my house, I knew. Allah brought you to find her. Chief Emeka knelt beside the bed. Mama Adana, I can never repay what you did. You saved my daughter. You raised her with love when the world rejected her. You gave her life. I only did what any mother would do, Mama Adana whispered. No, Chief Emeka said firmly. You did what only a mother with a heart of gold could do. And from today you are part of my family. You will never suffer again. Never lack anything. I promise you this. Mama Adana wept silently, overwhelmed by his words. Chief Emeka stood and addressed both women. You will not return to Yumyuk. Not to that life. Not to that suffering. I have a home in Lagos. A large home. You will both live there. Chioma will go to the best schools. She will have everything she was denied. Chioma's breath caught. Father. I don't know how to. You don't have to say anything, he said gently. You are my daughter. This is what fathers do. 3 days later, Mama Adana was strong enough to travel. The doctors declared her stable and gave her medications to continue her recovery. A convoy of cars arrived to take them to Lagos. Chioma helped Mama Adana into the back seat of the SUV. The old woman looked around in wonder, still unable to believe this was real. As they drove through Yumyuk one last time, villagers lined the streets, staring in shock. The girl they had called a witch was leaving in a billionaire's car. The woman they had mocked was being treated like royalty. Some villagers whispered in fear. Others in regret. A few even wept, realizing too late how wrong they had been. But Chioma didn't look at them with anger. She looked at them with pity. They had lived in fear and ignorance. She had lived in pain. But now both chapters were closed. The journey to Lagos took several hours. Chioma stared out the window the entire time, watching the world change. Villages became towns. Towns became cities. And finally they entered Lagos, the largest city she had ever seen. Tall buildings reached into the sky. Cars filled the roads. Lights sparkled everywhere. It was like stepping into a dream. When they arrived at Chief Emeka's mansion, Chioma gasped. The gate was made of black iron and gold. It opened automatically, revealing a massive compound with fountains, gardens, and a house so large it looked like a palace. This is where you live? Chioma whispered. Chief Emeka smiled. This is where we live. This is your home now. Mama Adana covered her mouth with both hands, tears streaming down her face. Allah is too kind, she whispered. Too kind. Inside, the mansion was even more beautiful. Marble floors. Crystal chandeliers. Soft carpets. Everything gleamed and sparkled. A team of housekeepers welcomed them warmly. They escorted Mama Adana to a large bedroom with a soft bed, clean sheets, and a bathroom bigger than her entire house in Yumyuk. Chioma was given her own room. It had a wide bed, a wardrobe full of new clothes, and windows that overlooked the garden. She stood in the center of the room, turning slowly, unable to believe this was real. That night, Chief Emeka called them both to the living room. The doctor smiled warmly. Chief Okafor, congratulations. The DNA test shows a 99.9% match. Chioma is your biological daughter. Chief Emeka let out a sound that was half cry, half laugh. He pulled Chioma into his arms again, holding her as if she might vanish if he let go. My daughter, he whispered over and over. My Zainab. My little girl. From her hospital bed nearby, Mama Adana watched through the open door. Her frail body shook with emotion. Tears rolled down her wrinkled cheeks as she whispered prayers of thanksgiving. A nurse wheeled her closer to them. Allah be praised, Mama Adana said softly. My daughter's destiny has found her. Chief Emeka released Chioma and knelt before the old woman's wheelchair. His expensive clothes touched the hospital floor, but he didn't care. Mama Adana, he said, his voice thick with gratitude. You saved my child when I couldn't. You loved her when the world rejected her. You gave her life. He took her wrinkled hands in his. Your suffering ends today. I promise you. Both of you will never know pain again. Mama Adana shook her head weakly, smiling. I never suffered, sir. Loving this child was my joy. Chief Emeka stood and made his decision immediately. You will not return to Yumyuk. Neither of you. I have a mansion in Lagos. You will live there. Chioma will go to the best schools. She will have everything she was denied. But sir, Chioma began. No, he said firmly but gently. You are my daughter. This is what fathers do. 3 days later, the doctors cleared Mama Adana for travel. She had received proper treatment, medications, and her breathing was strong again. Color had returned to her face. A convoy of luxury vehicles waited outside the hospital. Chief Emeka personally helped Mama Adana into the back seat, making sure she was comfortable with pillows and blankets. Chioma sat beside her, still unable to believe this was real. As they drove through Port Harcourt toward Lagos, she stared out the window in wonder. The world looked different now. Brighter. Fuller of possibilities. The journey took hours, but finally they entered Lagos. Chioma's eyes widened as tall buildings rose into the sky. Cars filled every road. Lights sparkled everywhere like fallen stars. When they reached Chief Emeka's estate, the massive iron gates opened automatically. Chioma gasped. Beyond the gates lay a paradise. Fountains danced in the sunlight. Gardens bloomed with colorful flowers. And the mansion itself was bigger than every house in Yumyuk combined. This is where we'll live? Chioma whispered. Chief Emeka smiled. This is your home now. Mama Adana pressed her hand to her chest, overwhelmed. I will die on a bed of kings? She murmured in disbelief. No, Mama, Chioma laughed through tears. You will live a long life on it. Inside, the mansion gleamed with marble floors and crystal chandeliers. Housekeepers bowed respectfully and showed them to their rooms. Mama Adana's room had a bed so soft she sank into it like a cloud. The sheets smelled of lavender. The bathroom had running water, something she'd never had in Yumyuk. Chioma's room was even larger. It had a wide bed, a wardrobe full of new clothes, and windows overlooking the garden. She stood in the center, turning slowly, tears streaming down her face. That evening, Chief Emeka gathered them in the grand living room. His face was serious but filled with love. I have lost 17 years of your life, Chioma, he began, his voice shaking slightly. 17 birthdays. 17 years of watching you grow. I can never get those back. Chioma's throat tightened. But I can give you a future, he continued. You will go to the best schools. You will travel the world. You will become whoever you wish to be. And no one will ever call you cursed again. Chioma covered her face and wept. All the pain, all the rejection, all the years of suffering seemed to pour out of her. Chief Emeka turned to Mama Adana. And you, Mama. You are not just the woman who raised my daughter. You are her mother in every way that matters. You will live here in peace and comfort. Forever. Mama Adana shook her head, smiling through tears. I need nothing, sir. Seeing my daughter happy is enough for me. Nevertheless, Chief Emeka said gently, you will have everything. Days turned into weeks. Chioma began medical treatments for her scar. Top specialists worked carefully, softening the old tissue and easing the pain she had carried for years. But when the doctors suggested removing the scar completely, Chioma refused. No, she said firmly. This scar is part of my story. It brought me back to my father. Reminds me that I survived. Don't erase it completely. Chief Emeka's eyes filled with pride when he heard this. You are stronger than I ever imagined. Meanwhile, news traveled fast. Word reached Yumyuk village that the scarred girl they had rejected was now living as a billionaire's daughter. The same villagers who had called her a witch now gathered in the marketplace, whispering in shock and shame. I always knew she was special, one woman claimed. We should have treated her better, another man said, shaking his head. She was a child of destiny all along, an elder muttered. We were blind. But their words came too late. Chief Emeka had no interest in their regret. He ignored every message they sent. His focus was on his daughter and the woman who saved her. One quiet evening, as the sun set over Lagos, Chioma stood on the mansion's wide balcony. The sky glowed orange and pink. The city below twinkled with 1,000 lights. Chief Emeka joined her, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. What are you thinking about? He asked softly. I'm thinking about Mama Adana, Chioma said. About how she found me that terrible night. How she chose love when everyone else chose fear. Chief Emeka nodded. She is the true hero of this story. Chioma turned to him, her eyes bright. And I'm thinking about you. How you never stopped searching in your heart. How you recognized me after 17 years. His throat tightened. The moment I saw your scar, I knew. A father never forgets. They stood together in silence, watching the sun disappear below the horizon. Inside, Mama Adana rested peacefully in her soft bed, her breathing steady and strong. The girl who had been rejected was now embraced. The woman who had been mocked was now honored. And the father who had mourned for 17 years had finally found his daughter. Chioma smiled as warm tears slipped down her cheeks. I used to hate this scar, she whispered. But now I understand. It wasn't a curse. It was a map leading me home. Chief Emeka pulled her close. Welcome home, my daughter. Welcome home. And in that moment, standing on the balcony under the fading light, 3 broken lives became whole again. The scar that once brought shame had become the bridge to destiny. Love had conquered rejection. And a family, torn apart by tragedy, had finally been reunited by the very mark that was meant to destroy them. We've come to the end of today's story. I hope it touched your heart. Thanks for watching and staying with us till the end. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring stories. See you in the next one. And tell us in the comments, where are you watching from?